You had a fun fact.
I
You did.
know.
I was not
And
informed. You had a fun
I didn't even
fact.
get to say my fun fact, but maybe I'll save that for next episode. It's not even a gaming fact, but you said the grizzled, and then it popped into my head, and it's just
Well,
bears came to mind. And I know this is just so
this is
random,
a
but I
journey.
learned this the other day because I learned one about snakes. I didn't know there was one about bears.
Welcome back. It's time for the Salt and Sass podcast, where we share our love for the wonderful world of board games with you, whether you're a gaming veteran or just starting your tabletop journey. Welcome to episode 2. Did I already say that? Oh well, welcome to episode 2 again. I'm Suzanne.
And I'm Mandy.
We are professionals, Mandy. We are podcasting pros.
I know.
Been doing it for years, still stumbling.
Well, I mean, we're used to video. We did the, you know what? I'm just making excuses. It's a lie. We should know these things by now. I am so sorry.
Snap to it, snap to it. Episode 2, there's no more room. Like we had our slough episode last time. We gotta knuckle down and get to it this time.
That's true.
Well, it is episode 2, and thank you so much for joining us again, everyone. It was really thrilling to see such a positive response to episode 1, and just really, Mandy, I don't know about you, I felt all the love from all the folks out there listening, and then watching too, since Mandy, you put up that amazing edit on the YouTube as well, so people can choose to
Yeah.
watch if they prefer that, and you throw up some of the photos we've taken of the games and things like that.
Yeah. So we definitely had lots of comments on the YouTube video. So thank you so much for that. I hope I got them all. If I didn't and I missed it, please just ping me and I will respond. But I tried to go through all of them. So if I did miss you, I apologize. But definitely felt the love and we very much appreciate it.
Absolutely. And I know that many of you are listening, and Mandy, we haven't talked about downloads, but for episode 1 of people who are just finding us, I was really happy to see everybody who is finding us. Now, we know that we don't quite have us up and running on Apple Podcasts yet. So
Right.
apologies,
Right.
everyone. We are in, Apple requires that podcasts be reviewed and approved, and we are just in that cycle right
Yeah.
now, waiting to get approved. I'm assuming we will. I mean, we're just talking board games here. But
Exactly.
apologies. There is, I mean, if you're listening to this, you already found us, so there's irony. But if you're on YouTube and you're looking for our audio podcast, we do have a link to the RSS feed that we'll put in the captions here, and it's also on our link tree as well. So you can always find us through that RSS feed as well, and we'll keep you posted on when we get approved. Knock on wood, by Apple Podcast too.
But nobody really listens to Apple, right? Like, I mean, I'm an Android girl, so I know nothing about that. I've just made so many enemies right now. They're like,
Wow.
how dare you? Yeah, I know.
I
I'm
see
waiting.
how it is. All
I'm
right, all right.
I'm
Jeez
waiting for all
Louise.
the messages, but no judgments.
So, in today's episode, we are going to be talking about some crowdfunding campaigns, some games we've been playing, and there's no You're the Expert segment today because, dun 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 dun, we have kind of a massive game pie all about the releases coming out at the Spiel at Essen. So, we wanted to give a
Yes.
little extra time for that because I know we're both super excited about those
So
games.
excited.
And I'm sure you are too, Mandy, your face.
Oh no.
But Mandy, even if you could get these games, I mean, do you have any money? Because I know you spent some money recently, honey.
Oh, okay. It's out of control. I didn't even talk about one of the things I bought, and we're going to leave that one alone. But I have always been an Xbox girl, Nintendo Switch. But I most recently purchased a PlayStation 5. I have never
Shocking.
played
Just
PlayStation.
shocking.
I know. Never played it. And the only reason why I got it is because I really wanted to play some of the exclusive. Like I had never played Last of Us, and I think is it Uncharted is another one. Like there were a whole bunch I just hadn't tried, and I was like, yes, I need to try it. So I figured now's the time. I had an opportunity to get one. So I got the digital version. So we'll see how that pans out. Controller's a bit weird for me, and I know a lot of people love the Dual Sense, but really like my Xbox controller. So I'm getting used to it. So that's the first thing. And then I've been on Steam getting some games, and I've been
Oh
looking at.
boy.
I
Oh
know
boy.
it's out of control. So Inscription, and I know Suzanne, you have this game. It's kind of like creepy, but I like the whole puzzly aspect. I just started it, so I know there's like the use with the cards and stuff. It's pretty fun.
Oh.
Do
You
you?
don't even know what's coming, girl.
Oh
Like and
gosh.
it's actually spoilery. So I don't want to say anything, but
Oh.
Inscription is definitely one of those games that you want to invest a little bit of time in because it's not quite what you expect it to be.
Okay, I'm excited. It does. I like the kind of dark starting theme to it,
You
so we'll
would,
see how it
yeah.
goes.
Mhm.
Potion craft is another one I've been spending a lot of time with. Literally, you're creating potions, and there's a map, and you have to traverse the map to get certain types of potions. So far, my shop is well, clients are very angry with me because I am not giving them the potions that they require. So that's a thing. I've also been playing Unmatched. Oh, that app is hard. Very hard. I keep losing. I mean, yes, I'm used to losing, but this is just too much. No, I'm kidding.
No, yeah, and again, I always will do this whenever anything comes up related to
Yes.
this. That I do work with restoration games behind the scenes. So full disclosure, anything I say about restoration games, you can just assume is biased. Mandy doesn't,
No.
but yes, the Unmatched Digital Edition released in Steam Early Access, so it's still kind of an advanced
Yeah.
beta mode. And it's so funny, Mandy, because we have like super hardcore Unmatched
Oh
players,
my god.
and they're just like they are finding all the little quirks about how
Yeah.
the AI plays and like
Yes.
why did they boost with this card? They should have boosted with that card and like super detailed nuanced play. Literally everybody else I've talked to
Yeah.
that isn't like a hardcore match player, they're like the AI is so hard. I'm like, "Oh, this is yeah."
Yeah. And I play on easy. So like
Yeah.
what's my excuse here? Okay. So just saying, but I'm liking it. It's just is hard. So I'm
Fair
working my
enough.
way to get a little bit better. So that's another one. And finally, Across the Obelisk is one, and it's a what would you call that? It's like a battle, like it's a card game,
Yeah,
but
I haven't played it yet, Mandy. And it but isn't this
oh
one cooperative like you and I could stream
yeah,
it or play it together?
we could totally play because playing
We
it
have to
solo is
do that.
hard because you're managing many decks. It's like all your
Got it.
cards are together in one
Mhm.
deck, but then you're managing a bunch of them and they all have different abilities. So that gets a little tricky. So far, so good though, but this is one I definitely would like to play with people. And finally, this is not on Steam, but I've been playing Tinykin on Xbox. Oh my gosh, so cute. If you haven't played it, it's on Game Pass. It's so cute. Anyway, I'm literally almost done. So I played it super fast.
Wow,
You
you
need to
played
play it.
hard.
I know. Okay. That is, I've got all the video app things out of my system. So anybody who's
Okay.
like, I came here for board games, well, we will, I promise, get to that shortly. All right. So now that I've gotten that out of my system, we are going to talk about board games, but we're having a convention in my area, so local to me. So in Canada. So people who live in my city will know what I mean when I say Canada. And it's this weekend, September 29th to October 30th. There's going to be a garage sale Saturday morning. I know I'm going to have a lot of items there, so you definitely should come and check it out. We'll also be demoing games like Keystone, Marvel United, Downforce, and much more. Go to canadaboardgamers.com for more details.
That's awesome, Mandy. About how many people go to CanadaCon or
It's
CanadaCon? Canada? Canada? Canada?
Canada.
Canuta?
Yeah, I know. It's yeah, those pronunciations take some getting used to. Um it's a smaller convention. So total will probably have maybe just over 100. So um that's about the numbers. It's about 100 for the weekend.
I love that. That's like you can really sit down and get some games played. It's a big enough group that there's always a game going, but it's a
Yeah,
small enough group that it doesn't feel overwhelming. That's awesome. I
exactly.
love
So
conventions are all about the
chill.
play.
Exactly.
Alrighty. Well, Mandy, we gotta talk about some stuff, some like actual specific games, don't you
Mm,
think?
yes, I think it's time.
All right. So I know we definitely have some crowdfunding campaigns, and it's just something that like both Mandy and I back a lot of games, right? And crowdfunding has been, I mean, a, a blessing and
Yes.
sometimes a bit of a curse to the industry. And I know that a lot of people have a lot of different opinions about it. I know I do because I've run campaigns and I've backed hundreds of campaigns. But you know what, Mandy? There are so many great games. And I know
Yes.
you and I just love I mean, we just love highlighting cool games, right? So you
Absolutely.
have one you want to talk about, and I have one I want to talk about.
Yes.
So which one? Go for it. You go first, please.
Okay, so I got so for those watching, yes, I have my notes on screen because sometimes I forget the details.
Oh, it's so hard.
I
Yeah.
know there's a lot. So the game I'm going to talk about for crowdfunding is called Float Downstream, and this is by Blood Moon Games. So this comes to Kickstarter the 27th of September. And before you say anything, it's a solo game. I know you're like, what? Lately, I've been kind of feeling some of these solo games. They describe it as a meditative solo game. I love solo RPGs because it's like creative writing for me. So I'm
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
hoping this is something, not necessarily that style, but something that makes me relaxed and
Mm-hmm.
meditative, it says. And so they talk about, from what they've sent here, it has double sided cards. It's a poetic experience. These are some of the words they've used to describe it. It plays in about 10 to 30 minutes, which is really nice. And it's a quick setup. And it says it's a unique combination of poetry, meditation, and strategic decision making.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
So,
mean, I love solo games. That sounds amazing.
yeah. So,
And I'm just looking up right now.
yeah, the goal is to experience as much of life's journey as possible. Oh, before your inevitable death. I didn't see that part.
Oh, that escalated quickly. What the heck? Okay.
But wait. It says you'll float downstream, flipping cards to reveal more of the river's flow. I kind of like where this is going. As you journey down the river, you'll be receiving and expending counters to try to keep a balanced mind so as not to be drawn beneath the water and drowned.
Are we like
So
floating down the river Styx in this game? That got dark.
it did, but
Wow.
it's like poetic. So if you are
Wow.
down that path, it's like a poetic death. So I kind of feel like there's going to be some creative thought here. Maybe I might do some writing after this. I don't know. So, Float Downstream, Blood Moon Games launches the 27th of September. It's solo, but I kind of like these kind of solo games. Not about death, but the creative
Mandy,
process behind it.
have you ever played A Gentle Rain?
No, I've wanted to, and every time I've went to purchase it, it was sold out.
Yeah, it's I don't know what's going to happen cuz Mondo Games is kind of going through some changes, but this is
Ah,
designed by Kevin Wilson and it is you can do it cooperatively I think with like another person, but it's
okay.
really designed to be a solo game and it's exactly like the vibe that
Hmm.
Float Downstream is. It's just this really chill little tile laying game where you're matching
Mm,
pretty symbols and it is. It's like
I like
it's
it.
the board game equivalent of a gentle rain on a lovely Sunday morning with a cup of hot cocoa or tea or coffee. It's yeah. So float downstream, I can get into that vibe.
I,
Death
yeah, but
aside.
I think it's just meant to be like, in a poetic way, I guess, because I mean it's part of life, right? Um, but when you started talking about cocoa, I instantly thought of Mrs. Doubtfire and a cup of hot cocoa.
Oh my gosh, how old is that movie? That
I
movie's
don't know
so
what's
old
wrong with
now.
me.
Oh my
Okay, I'm
gosh.
sorry. So
Oh, I
that's
mean,
that's my
Mandy,
pick
the
for this
list.
week for crowdfunding.
Well, my pick this week is actually kind of an RPG. It's Coyote and Crow, and
Nice.
honestly, Mandy, you and I both play some measure of RPGs. It's
Oh,
not where we
I
spend
backed
most
this
of our
one. I
gaming
know
time.
you did too.
Yeah. It's just phenomenal. And Coyote and Crow is designed and illustrated and published by primarily people from First Nations tribes, and it has kind of this futuristic setting,
Mhm.
this alternate universe where what if colonialism didn't exist and how would the world look, and so it's kind of got a sci-fi futuristic vibe to it. The
Yeah.
art is amazing. The gameplay, I've not played the RPG yet, but the gameplay of the RPG looks
Hmm.
awesome, and just kind of this immersive world with all these different um characters that you can do and all the different storytelling elements that they pull in.
Right.
But if you're not into that, they also have in this campaign, and this is on BackerKit,
Hmm.
which we talked about in last episode, not on Kickstarter, it's on BackerKit, called Nasai, which is
Mm.
a roll and write game, Mandy.
Of course, I should have known. Should have known.
And it's just a really lightweight push your luck style roll and write game, kind of like if you are gaming with your family and they're used to playing something like a Yahtzee and they want to
Yeah.
do something different, or you want to bring them up a level. It's kind of like a great next step there, where you've got like white dice that are the coyotes and you have black dice that are the crows, and like it's just a little push your luck set thing, kind of in that zone. But you can also just back for that if you're not
Right.
into the RPGs. But I'm really excited about Coyote and Crow. I love what they're doing just across the board in terms of native and indigenous
Mhm.
representation and just making it really appealing and approachable and fantastic. So check that out. That is on BackerKit, and I think that goes. I'm going to look it up. Uh, uh, October 12th is when that campaign
Oh,
ends.
okay,
So
so
there you go.
got a little bit of time, and that's sorry, October 12th is when it launches?
When it ends, when it
When it
ends, it's live right
ends.
now.
Okay,
Yeah,
it's live now. Okay, perfect. Oh, look at that. Yeah, that's exciting because 'cause I'm
good stuff.
definitely into the RPG, so very excited to hear about this new game.
All
Okay,
right,
well,
Mandy.
games.
Let's talk about game. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
games.
Let's talk about some games that we have actually been playing lately.
Yes.
There's some good stuff, and there's one on your list that I'm so excited to hear about because I'm interested in it, but I haven't had a
Oh,
chance to check it out.
okay. All right, everybody, game time. And I have a few. Actually, we're going to do three this week. And the first one on my list is called Challengers. So
This
I'm
is the one I want to know all about. This game.
it's so fun. It's sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. It's one I didn't think that it would be my thing, but I was very. They were very kind to show me the game early when I was at Gen Con, and then I was sent a copy early, but I couldn't do anything with it until I think about a week ago or so. And we did a live stream. So the game is Challengers, designed by Johannes Krenner and Marcus Slavicek. Art is by Jeff Harvey, and it's published by One More Time Games and Z-Man Games. And it plays 1 to 8 players in about 45 minutes. So it's not a long game. So in the game, I've only played it with 4. I would love to play it with 8. But you get these mats because you're playing against other people. So I think it's like a Keyforge, where it's like you against somebody else. I
Sure.
haven't played Keyforge for a long time, but I think that's how it is. You kind of do these
Okay.
like tournament type things. And
Okay.
you have everybody has a starter set of cards which have, different types of like professions or things on them, like one's an athlete or whatnot. And everybody has the same cards and they have numerical values on them. So you're like, okay, whatever. So what's going to happen over the game? You actually are going to end up switching seats depending on the card you were given. So it'll say, for round 1, you're at this end of the mat, but maybe you're on a different map in round 2, that sort of thing. So you're going to be going up against different people. You're trying to make your deck better by getting different cards from either the A pile, the B pile, or the C pile of cards. And what ends up happening is on a turn, you're going to say, okay, so the first round, and it tells you on the card which pile you're taking from and how many. So let's say the first round, you're taking 2 A cards. So you're going to get 5 A cards. And now the A cards are different than your starting cards. They're going to have more professions with different abilities on them. Okay, so this is where you kind of want to build up your hand, but you want to try and get cards that are the same. Not all the same, but you want to have doubles or triples of the cards if you can, and I'll explain why in a minute. So after you've done that, you pick your 2 cards, but if you don't pick 2 cards from that, you can get another 4 and pick from that. Then once everybody's done the thing, if there are any cards you want to get rid of, now's the time. Shuffle up your deck. You're ready to go head to head with the person. So there's like a little flag token. It's in the middle. So the first
Got it.
person
Got it.
flips their card and it'll have a number on it, right? So it could be like the athlete, which is worth a value of 4. So they start off with, they're going first. So they have a little flag token on their card. Then you flip your card. Your card now needs to be a 4 or higher to
Mhm.
beat their card. And sometimes the cards will have abilities that will kind of amp that up. So if you have a 4 or higher, because remember the first person played 4, then that person would win that round. And the card that was the first card played or from the other player goes into their bench. So the bench is the side of the mat, and I don't remember how many slots are there. I think it's like 6 or 7. I could be off on that. And ideally, you do not want to fill your bench and then have to go and put someone there and have no room to put them. That will cause you to lose that round.
Got it.
Additionally, if you run out of cards and you're not able to play against the person you're playing against, you will lose that round. And you get
Okay.
points every time you win the round. And at the end, the 2 people who have the highest point value go head to head, and whoever wins that wins the game. Yes.
That's
So the
light
progressively
and quick. It sounds.
it's super quick. Like it literally like
Yeah.
the time that it gives you on there, like the 45 minutes, that's pretty accurate. I think we played in about 30 minutes because we play with fewer players, but that is accurate. So just from the sounds of it, I was like, yeah, I don't know. This doesn't really sound like my kind of game. There's a lot of moving around. I'm like, this sounds kind of party-esque, which is not my jam. But I have to tell you, super fun. Like, I don't know why, maybe because it's snappy. I'm terrible at it. Like, let's be clear, I am not good at this game at all. But I like the way that it comes. The mats are really nice. They have the the holders for the cards. So when you're discarding, there's like a place to put those discarded cards, and then a place to hold the cards that you're taking from that letter. So I thought that was really nice. The insert actually makes sense. I know this doesn't happen often, everybody, but makes sense. But the game itself is fun. Now it's light. If you're looking for something that's going to burn your brain, this is not the game for you. But it's really nice to bring to the table, like at a convention, which I'll be doing soon enough. Or I have friends who maybe are gamers, but they don't want anything too wild or heavy. They're really enjoying this, and we pull this out quite a bit. And you can play with multiple copies, right? If you were trying to get like a
Oh
bigger
wow, that yeah,
group and
yeah, yeah, I
stuff, so
love
that'll
that.
be really fun. But I actually don't have a lot of bad things to say about it. You can play it solo. I have not played it solo. So I have a friend who played it solo on stream, and he really liked it. I'll be honest with you, this is probably not a game that I would play solo because you have to
Fair
play
enough.
against what do you call it?
Well, it sounds like the interaction is a lot of the fun too
Yeah. So this
for
is the
you.
key with Challengers. So I think Challengers is going to be debuting at Essen. So if you're going, this will be something that's there. So you should definitely give it a try. I really liked it. Again, I'm not a big kind of party, lots of people type game, but this was snappy and this was fun. So Challengers is a big thumbs up for me.
I love it. I am intrigued, and I'm even more
Your kids
excited
would
to
love
check it
it.
out now.
They would
Yeah,
love it.
that's my brain went there too for sure. Well, speaking of games that you could play with multiple copies and that is good for good groups, my first game of this episode, Guild of
Mm,
Merchant Explorers. This is
nice.
designed by Matthew Dunstan, Brett J. Gilbert, which is like, and Brett J. Gilbert. And it's like, this is one of my favorite design duos. I just love the work that they come up with together. The illustrations are by Geralt Landman, and
Mm,
the publisher is AEG, Alderac Entertainment Group. You know, this is a standard game. You open it up, it's got this very like soft illustration style.
right.
And a lot of people have called this a Roland write without the writing, and I was intrigued by that description because I'm like the writing is crucial for a
Yes.
game to be a Roland write game. But all right. So I get in there, and Guild of Merchant Explorers. Every player gets the same map little board in front of them that's made of different hexagons with different terrain types on it, like mountains or grass. And then every player gets a bunch of cubes and a bunch of little castle like
Mhm.
meeples that they will play in their player color. There's some various other components and things like that. But the key here is that there's just a very small deck of cards that will drive the game. So if you've played a card driven roll and write, like a flip and write game, this is. I get where the comparison comes up. So basically, a card is going to get flipped. It will have a terrain on it, like, say, one mountain. And then players will all get to place a cube on their map on a single mountain hex. Maybe the next card that comes up is the two grasslands, and they don't have to be connected, but it's just grasslands. Then every player will just place a cube on up to two grasslands. That's it. And then you go through the deck and the round's over and you keep on going. And this is a game I have taught this game a ton. I've
Yeah.
played this game well over a dozen times right now. And it's a game that every new player goes their first impression in the first round is like, how are you going to do anything in this game? Because there's literally only like 6 turns in the first round. Basically, what you're trying to do is you're trying to fill in regions of terrain types with cubes because then you can put a village. Villages are important because then you can expand from villages in future rounds. And you're just trying to spread out, fill in regions. You're going to score points for villages. There are little towers around the edge that, discovery towers that you can get bonus points for as well. Every time you do this kind of stuff, you're going to get coins. Coins are points. End of the game. After you play 4 rounds, the person with the most points wins. It's very straightforward. And I'm telling you consistently, I can teach and play a full game of this in 45 minutes or less, no matter
Good.
the player count,
Hmm.
which is one of the nice things. This is a
Yeah.
game where everybody plays simultaneously. The card flips, everybody makes their choice and executes their action. Ta-da, easy peasy. You're always engaged, you're always thinking, you're always planning.
Right.
Now, the one element of this game that really makes it work, there's a few things. First of all, there's 4 different maps that you can play with, and they do get progressively more complex. So,
Mm,
there's a starter map, but then there's other maps included as well that players can play. Each map comes with 6 different specific goal cards, but you only play with 3, and they're just shuffled up and randomized. And those do really impact the game as well. And that's a really cool element too. And the biggest part to me is that the way the game works is that in each round, you're going to get a special ability card for just you. So this card's going to come up, and then you get a couple to pick from, and you pick one, and then that is an action that only you can take in future rounds. And then the second round, you get another one, and then you get to do your first round action and your second round action. And these actions are critical to gameplay because they just let you do all sorts of different things. They drive your strategy, and they're really satisfying to pull off if they come out at the right time.
Right.
So that's an element of the game that is fascinating, and there's so many. There's a nice thick deck of these in the game. So, and they're all very different and impact gameplay in interesting ways. And like maybe one says, "Oh, you can put a cube on a water space, and then up to 5 spaces around it." Or maybe one says you can put cubes in a straight line on any mountain or grassland space, that kind of thing. Again, you're doing this to fill in regions, to meet those goals, to create villages, there's treasure ruin spaces on the board. But between each round, when you do the cubes, there's going to be some tokens that get dropped, and you're going to put these villages. All those cubes come off the board in between every round. It's a board wipe in some ways.
Right.
And then you start over. And when you teach the game, it's really important that you explain that to people, that they understand, like, it's really important that you get a village out early so you can spread out. But that board wipe is really fascinating because you're starting from scratch again, but hopefully you've built up in the earlier rounds so that you can have more powerful future turns.
Hmm.
It's quick, it's simple to teach, and honestly, I'm just digging it. I've played it solo, I've played it with up to 4. It is the kind of game, if I have a second set, you could play with more players if you wanted to, the way that the calling of the cards works out. I think it's a really clever design. I definitely have little nitpicks about it. So
Hmm.
the biggest complaint I've heard about it is it can be fiddly, right? It can be
Hmm.
fiddly to pull these little cubes off in between rounds, and I can see that being a fair point, quite frankly. Another common kind of criticism I've heard about the game is that there are treasure cards, and when you discover a ruin, you just get a random treasure card. And depending on which one you get, sometimes it feels like a little bit of a letdown because it might not be the perfect treasure card you need in that moment. And there's some set collection there. Maybe you needed one and you didn't get it, that kind of thing. We tried a game where you got to draw 2 and keep one,
Hmm.
but then it felt too powerful. It just felt like you were
Yeah.
really able to I don't know. So, I've heard that complaint about it too. Ultimately, it doesn't inhibit my enjoyment of the game, but it's another
Sure.
complaint I've heard about the game that I can understand their point of view on that. But in general, Guild of Merchant Explorers is quick, it's clever, it's deceptively simple as you get into it, and that first round goes, and everybody's who hasn't played before is just like, "What?" And by that third round, people are just agonizing.
Right. Decision.
Their head is in their hand, and they're staring into the abyss as they're trying to figure out, okay, if the plains card comes up first, I can do this and this and this.
Right.
If the grasslands card comes up first, I can only do this. But maybe if I like it's got a lot to it that I don't know you see in the first round. So I've really been enjoying Guild of Merchant Explorers. I can see the roll and write without the right comparison. But it's definitely one that if you're looking for a simple game that's got some depth to it that plays super fast,
Yeah.
it's definitely worth checking out.
This one was fun. Oh, another game that I am just horrendous at. But I think the first time I played it was with all of you, and I think Eric Yurko, who taught that to us, and that was at was it Kubla Khan?
Kubla Khan in California, yeah.
Yeah, and thanks Eric for that great teach. It was very good. But I was just bad at it. But I did order it. It's been really hard to get, actually.
I wonder if they went through their print run. Maybe it's just very,
Mm,
very popular. I don't know.
maybe I'm looking at you, Arc Nova. Something very similar. Anyway, I'm very excited to play it. It's a good game, but it is tricky to do well.
Yeah. So that's Guild of Merchant Explorers.
Okay, well, the next one I know Suzanne has played with me and a few other people, and I've also played this with friends, not with Suzanne. So, My Father's Work. This is designed by T.C. Petty III. Art is by Anne Lee Art. Cold Castle Studios, Eric Hibler, Damien Mamoliti, and Janos Orban. Published by Renegade Game Studios. It plays 2 to 4 players in about 180 minutes, so it's a big one. The whole premise of the game is that players are mad scientists, so they're competing against each other, and they're trusted with a page from their father's journal and a large estate in which to perform their apparently devious experiments. So, which, yes, devious would be right. So in the game, you have boxes for like scenarios that you can run through because game is and I'm going to say in quotes, app driven. I don't find the app plays a ton in the game, but it does come in from time to time for certain elements. And throughout the game, you have, I guess, different types of people that are going to allow you to do different types of actions within your kind of home area or in the city. And it's things like potentially gaining resources or gaining tiles that you can put on the board that help you get resources, these sorts of things, completing objectives. There's another track that also helps you get points at the end of the games, but also gives you resources. Lots of things like that in the game. So you do have two places you can play, but each character you have can only go to specific areas. There are also tracks on the board that you also have to monitor because if you do certain actions, it'll say, well, you have to kind of pay with this, potentially losing the proper mindset. So it's leading you towards insanity. And these are cards potentially you could get that are not great. You can get one or two, but after that starts to accumulate and you can't get rid of them because you get an even bigger card to deal with, which is not always good. But if you can complete them, you get points. Little things like that. So there are other tracks that you have to be cognizant of. So I think it plays over, oh gosh, it's been a hot minute. Oh gosh, it just went right out of my head. They have different phases it plays out through, and I think it's either 3 or 4 phases. I apologize that I can't remember off the top of my head. And at the end of that, then you're gonna take a look at all of your end game points that you've acquired throughout the game, and then ones that are accumulated at the end, and see who wins from that. Okay, so I thought I 100% liked this game, and that's not to say I don't. But I've played it at different player counts now, and the three-person player count seemed to work the best for me. I feel like when we played, was it four? Yeah, we played with four. I found it too long. It was just too long. And then we were chatting and doing all the things. But I was like, no, 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 no. This needs to progress. And if I'm feeling the length of a game, that's not good because I
Sure,
play
sure.
lots of games that are 3+ hours but I don't notice that time because it's great. It's engaging. This kind of stalls, I find, after a certain amount of time, especially if turns are drawn out. So player count matters here. I know some people may disagree with me on that, but I did not enjoy it at 4. Too long for my personal taste. The app, this is maybe a little quibble, but it would have voice for some parts and then not voice others. And I'm just like,
And it was a
consistency is
little
key for me.
weird
It's
when
weird. Either
it
don't
yeah,
voice
that
it
like
or voice
when it
it.
would have voice and when it wouldn't felt odd to me. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about.
It was too much. So I was like, "Ugh," I know it's a minor thing, but I find that frustrating, especially if I'm trying to immerse myself into the game. And then I did feel that the reading was very fast. It was, and I understand cadence is important, but it literally was like, okay, the person was talking like this, and, and I'm like, it just felt like they were rushing to get through, and I'm like, well, I know it's long, but I want to enjoy this a little bit. This is the part that I want you to take your time with. So I did find that kind of took me out of it a little bit. The components are beautiful. I mean, they have little bottles for the potions, and the gears are made out of the metal, and the components are fantastic. And I have to say, the production of it is very good. And I know it was on Kickstarter, so definitely you can see the quality is there. So it's just one of those games where I liked kind of where the story was going. I liked that you had people that can do the different actions in the different areas and you can get more to make those happen, but the game does not need to be that long. It's just takes you right out of the experience and I feel someone who maybe might have liked the game, that would pull them right out of it because they might find it a little monotonous kind of halfway through. So my father's work overall good, but the length of the game was a bit of an issue for me.
And to be clear, Mandy, when we played in that four-player game, I mean, yes, we were chatting. It was a group
Sure,
of friends, and we were, so we have to account for that. But I
absolutely.
think it took us almost 6 hours,
It
right?
took us, yeah, and I mean, it should have
Yeah,
taken when I did with 3 players,
it
we
was a
played
lot.
first game in 3 hours. For the first game, I never
Right,
played, didn't
right.
know the rules, so yeah.
I will say that one of the elements of the game I did really like was there was a moment where you had to make a choice where you
Yes.
achieve something and then you get to go off. Like you have to take the app privately and go off and like answer a question and make a choice. And then you come back to the game. And depending on how the game progresses, it kind of gives you this secret little goal, at least in the
Yeah.
game I played with you.
Yeah.
And and it did seem to have a ramification at the end of the game or at a point in the game in the future. And I did think that was pretty cool. But yeah, I would have liked it if it had been a little quicker too.
Yeah, so my father's work, there you are.
Well, much quicker is a game called Fife.
Mm.
Fyfe, all in capitals. I do not know why. It's all in capitals. I actually don't know why this game is called Fife. We even looked it up, to be honest, but we couldn't quite figure it out, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Fife is a board game designed by Kosh, and the illustrations are by Lucas Sigmund, and it's published by Pegasus Spiele. And this is a game it's set in like a tropical island. It theme. It's really a very abstract game. And what the game has is everybody's going to get their own player board and their own set of surfboards. And if you were imagining this player board, first of all, it's a very nice production. It's double layered, so it has little circular cutouts on the top layer, so it holds the tokens that you're going to be playing. So that's really really nice. But then two sides of it are very wavy, and they're wavy because you're intended to put a surfboard in those notches because surfboards are scoring indicators. And then you get a big bag of wooden tiles with different icons on them. And basically, every tile has three characteristics. There's a number, 1 through 5. There are 5 different colors it could have on it, and there are 5 different icons that could have it. So, for example, you could have a green leaf 2. You could have a pink leaf 3. You could have a yellow turtle 4, that kind of thing. Cool. So, in a round, every player is going to pull a tile out of the bag. They have, a tile in front of them so they can pick from two. And then they're going to put a tile or a token on one of the spaces in the board in this 5 by 5 grid, wherever they want. There's no like adjacency like rules for where you can place. You just put it in any open spot that you want to. Now, if you put it in a spot and it does not have a surfboard pointing at it in a row or a column, then you must put out a surfboard in one of those spots that's now pointing at that token. And the reason why this matters is those surfboards have a variety of different scoring conditions on them. So maybe one of the surfboards is all the same color, or maybe one of the surfboards is all different colors, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in that order, or all different icons, or all, a full house. Like you can have 2 of icon A and 3 of icon B. That's just a ton of these scoring surfboards. And then you would declare that. So you're basically determining your own scoring structure in the game. And I love games that let you pick your scoring. For example, Carnegie, Mandy, which we just talked about in the last episode, right? Where you get to do the donations and you kind of
Yes.
get to pick what you score.
So good.
I love that stuff. So here you go. You just go through the game and you're drawing tiles and you're putting tokens out onto the board. You're declaring row and column scoring with surfboards. And at the end of the game, you're just going to figure out which surfboards score points, and you're going to get points, and whoever has the highest amount of points wins. Now, if you're the first person to take on that scoring condition, you get a bonus tile. You get some bonus points for being first. And then there are some shell tokens that you have as well that give you a little special ability that if they're drawn out of the bag, everybody can use one of their special ability shell tokens that lets you shuffle things around or turn some tiles into wilds and that kind of thing.
Mm.
Overall, it's a very, very simple, straightforward game, just like Guild of Merchant Explorers. Very simple to teach, very simple to play. But man, you get in there and it hurts. And you get angry. Like, man, I get angry at the tiles coming out of the bag. I'm like, why are there no more turtles coming out? I need another turtle.
I,
I'm
I
so mad. Like,
I do recall that when I drew all the turtles.
yeah. This is a game that Mandy and I have managed to play together. I've also played it with a bunch of other people. And I just love the way that you get to determine scoring. At some point, you're going to have to just give up on a row or a column and just say, "Pff, forget it. I'm never going to get it." And, slough a row basically. It's just really, really solid. The icons are like a leaf, a flower, a turtle, and then like a native head token. I don't love that icon. I don't know why they included it. I would have
Yeah.
loved just about anything else, but so be it. It's kind of a minor nitpick in the grander scheme. I think the scoring elements are interesting. You are engaged enough that you're kind of watching what other people are doing to determine how close you are to getting a scoring condition. Because if you think like you're going through the game, you're like, oh, I'm the first to get all the same color. Hey, I'm gonna get my bonus points. But somebody else gets it in the same turn. Guess what? Nobody gets the bonus. And certainly Mandy never ruined my grand plans for bonus points multiple times in a game by tying me. Hmm.
My
Yeah.
bad.
Of course, then again, you could argue I ruined your plans too because
Also
yeah,
true because I lost to Ashley. I thought I was doing fairly well actually, and I think I lost by like a few
yeah,
points there. Dang
yeah.
it.
But Fife, it's a really solid game. It's a nice production. It's if you like abstract games and if you like that idea of being able to determine your row and column scoring as you're going throughout the game, definitely worth checking out. I've really been enjoying it. So that's Fife. Fife. Hey, if you all know why it's called Fife, if there's just something I haven't been able to find,
Let us know.
email me, please. I want to know.
Yeah, this was a good game. I liked it. And not because I was close to winning. I actually really enjoyed the trying to like figure out, okay, if I put this here,
Yeah.
it'll work here, but I also need to make sure it's going to work here for this scoring thing. I was about it. And usually my brain just doesn't work very well with that, but maybe it was the colors, the aesthetic. I was into it. So Fife for me, very nice game. Well, the last game I'm going to talk about brings me back to my childhood. My Little Pony, My Little Pony. And that's literally the game. My Little Pony Adventures in Equestria deck building game. I see Suzanne was also, for those who are not watching the video, Suzanne had a very nice dance for My Little Pony there. So I don't remember the rest of it. I'm sorry. Otherwise, I'd sing more. That's as far as it goes. I'm old, okay? Sorry. So My Little Pony Adventures in Equestria deck building game is designed. There's no designer listed on the site, and there's no artist listed on the site. That doesn't mean there isn't one. It's just there was not one
Yeah,
listed on
obviously.
BGG.
Huh.
So yeah, obviously somebody had to do it. So maybe next episode I can clarify that. But another game by Renegade Game Studios. It's for 1 to 4 players, and it plays in about 45 to 90 minutes. So My Little Pony, that's the theme of this game. So it's definitely one that a lot of people will be familiar with. In the game, you get to choose the pony that you'd like to be, and the goal is to try to overcome hurdles and the last obstacle in the game. On the way, there are some cards like situations that can make this difficult for you. That's an addition to the game. You don't have to play with those, but that is something to be wary of because you have cards in like a display that you can pick from because it's a deck building game. You're trying to make your deck better, so that allows you to acquire cards in order to play to give you, actions to work toward beating these the hurdles. I keep saying the wrong word. Hurdles because you have 3 hurdles and then like the big obstacle at the end, but you can't beat the obstacle till you get over those hurdles. And the goal is to a lot of them on these cards is to get sugar cubes. And the sugar cubes are sparkly, so that's kind of fun. But they're like specifically, you need this blue sugar cube, so you all have to acquire that. And you can usually do it as a group, but some of them will say specifically each player has to have it, and those tend to be a little tricky. Uh, if you don't do it by the end of your turn, you get little cloud tokens on the card. And this triggers bad things once it reaches a certain number. So if it, like, for example, reaches 4, something bad happens. If there are 8 clouds, something else that bad happens. And after that, if you've reached the max amount of clouds that you can put on that card and it tells you how many, you have to start putting them on the end obstacle card. And if that gets filled up, you lose the game. There are areas in the game you can go to, like the town hall. There's like a little area you can visit to kind of help you trade in tokens to get cubes and things like that. So it helps you kind of maneuver that a little bit. And like I said, there's the market of cards you can choose from to build up your deck. And within that, you have cards that give you abilities that last all the time if you have that card out or things like that to help you or other players. You have your own card specifically for your pony that also gives you like an additional action, and then you have to pay to kind of turn it back over if you want to use it in the game. So, as I said before, the game ends when you complete all 3 obstacles in that final hurdle, or you don't, and that's the end of the game. So, uh, I overall really liked this game. I suspected I might anyway because it's My Little Pony, but I was like, I was worried that it might be too juvenile for me. But it's one of those games where I think it's like 14 plus, and I would honestly say it is a 14 plus game. People look at it, and because it's an IP that's really cute, they think, oh, I can play this with younger children. At the end of the day, it's still a deck building game, and there's a lot of reading, which is
Yeah.
fine. Not to say that kids can't do that, but you also have to understand nuances of cards. Like if I get this card, it does this, which does this. There are a lot of things at play. Like there's a lot going on and a lot to manage. So, not to say that children under 14 can't play, but it definitely, because it is cooperative, and I should have said that earlier, it is a cooperative game. So, you could play, but you're definitely going to have to be really assisting with cards if you're going to play with a younger child. So, it's not really, I think, you're toward that, like a younger age group. I've also played it solo. I liked it solo. I know I'm on a solo kick today, but this is a game where it's just me against the game. and I could just play my cards. Like it didn't really change much, which I really liked. Really, really enjoyed playing it solo. Those situation cards are hard. Like my friends were not happy. You can put them in the game. There are multiple that you can put in, and these are tricky because when they stay in that row where you can buy cards, it consistently does bad things. So it makes it really difficult. So I would only use those types of cards if you're like, I really want to amp up the difficulty level, but it's hard enough as it is. So I do like the fact that you can go from like here to like crank it right up to 10 if you want it to be more difficult. So, time wise, it says 45 to 90 minutes. I would strongly disagree with that. I think this game takes longer to play.
Sure.
Especially people for the first time. You got to read your cards and and that's most deck builders, right? You're trying to figure out things, how they work. It is co op, so you can kind of play open a little bit, but I do find this takes longer with more players. Each turn takes a while. Once you start getting more cards, I do find that it does take some time. So, solo, it probably took me about an hour. But I think any more players, it does tend to play a little bit longer. I didn't mind in this game because it worked out really nicely. But yes, definitely a lot going on. So I would say not necessarily for a younger audience. My Little Pony Adventures in Equestria, the deck building game, is a win for me. And this is one that is on the shelf. So I am keeping it. So I enjoyed it immensely a
I
lot.
actually really, really want to play this, but I think a lot of it is just tied to being, a child of the 80s and remembering, the
Yeah,
cartoons and the toys
but
and all
it's
that
not even
stuff.
the same
So
art. Like the art that we remember is very different than the new My Little Pony. I do like the old art. The new art's nice too, but I think you would like the game.
okay, it's on the list, but too
All
many
right.
games.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Uh Thematically incredibly different than that game is Resist. This is a solo only game, Mandy, designed by Trevor Benjamin, Roger Tankersley, and David Thompson.
Mhm.
And the art is by Albert Montez, and it's published by Salt and Pepper Games. And I actually have another game by Salt and Pepper Games, who I'll be honest, I didn't really know much about them
Yeah, I don't know
prior to
them.
these two games, but they also have a roll and write game. Hello,
Of
that
course.
they did that is excellent and it does something unique. And we'll talk about that in a future episode. But
Mhm.
this, we're talking about Resist right now. This is a game set in the late 1930s in Spain after a civil war. And basically, you're taking on the role of the Maquis, who are kind of like rebel freedom fighters trying
Mhm.
to fight against the system and fight for freedom for their people. And it's all card driven. So you're going to get slightly larger size cards that represent missions that you're going to be doing, and actually your characters as well, your troops, so to
Yeah.
speak. And then there's cards that represent the soldiers that you're fighting against. And basically, you're going to set up some of these cards that are missions, and they're ranked in levels one, two, and three. And you kind of seed the game for difficulty. Difficulty. And then each mission will have you arrange some random soldiers or enemy combatant cards above them, but they're all face down, which is critical and cruel and thematic, but definitely adds some tension and stress. And then you have this deck of character cards that are yours, and they have two halves to them. One is if they are played in secret, like their identity as a rebel is secretive, or if you play them openly, that they are known to be a rebel, and then they have a different power on each side. And they're often complementary or similar, but at different strengths or different things like that.
Mhm.
And then they will have combat power on them as well. So they have this ability and then they have combat power. And then on your turn, you have a hand of cards of these player cards, and you're going to choose how to play them. You can go through your planning phase or your attack phase and line them up, use their special abilities. Ultimately, what you're trying to do is knock down these missions. You're trying to defeat the enemies at these different mission cards and then have enough strength to defeat the mission, because the mission has a strength on it as well, and go through that. And each mission has points on it. And what's interesting is that you can lose this game. You can definitely, trust me, you can lose this game. If you're like me, you can constantly lose this game. But you can also kind of win. But it's interesting in that, who wins a war, right?
Mhm.
You basically can push your luck, and you choose when to stop playing. And then there's a score chart in the rule book that determines, your how your rank of victory kind of situation. It's a fascinating game, and the art is really interesting to me. It's got this comic book cartoon sense of illustration to it. And when you look at the cards and you read them, they're just different people's names, like Consuela or Pedro or
Mhm.
things like that. And you realize that enhancing that setting, enhancing that theme, you've got a handful of just citizens fighting
Yeah.
for freedom, right? You've got the baker, and you've got the journalist, and you've got just the electrician. I don't know. You've just got people
Mhm.
fighting for freedom. And the art really ties that in for me as well. Just the way that these, even in their cartoon style, they seem very
Yeah.
human to me.
Yes.
And you're making hard choices, and the decision on when you play them to reveal them, taking them out of your deck and putting them into this other deck that you have access to, kind of, is a really difficult choice. When to try to go up and fight at a mission is really difficult because those enemy combatants are hidden. There are cards that let you reveal them, which is good, but then you're getting less attack power for them. Like,
Yeah.
the balance and the math and the choice is really, really interesting mechanically. And the enemy combatants that you revealed, they have different abilities. Maybe one of the enemies, you have to defeat it before you can tackle the mission, or you have to defeat it before you can tackle other enemies, or you pull more enemies in, or all that kind of thing. um the choices are really compelling and really challenging. The game is compelling and challenging, and I think uh, I can compare it a little bit to the Simon game, the Command Games one about World War I. That was the cooperative game.
Oh, the
Now I
grizzled?
can't remember the game. What?
The grizzled?
The Grizzled,
I almost said in
right?
French, sorry, it took me a minute.
That's fine. There's something. The Grizzled always kind of poked me emotionally in a really weird way, and Resist kind of pokes me in that weird emotional way too, in this warlike setting, where you feel emotionally attached to victory, or in my case, to constantly losing,
Right.
which is a compelling and fascinating element for me in Resist. So I very, very much like this game mechanically. It's very simple mechanically in terms of drawing cards, making decision, playing them to the open or the secretive side, trying to get new cards in, trying to determine the right moment to reveal a card, and then it takes it out of your deck, and that's a very difficult decision. Tackling these missions, and then once you've made progress, how far do you want to go? What is
Right.
victory for you? How well do you want to do? These are all very challenging and compelling moments in this little solo card game, and I really like it. I really like it. I think you can play it at different levels
Mhm.
in terms of how into it you get. But it's interestingly narrative to me. And Mandy, you know me, I'm not necessarily a huge theme person in
Sure.
games, right?
Yeah.
But for some reason, the theme in Resist really hit me. I really feel it as I'm playing it. I really like it mechanically. I clearly could never be part of any actual war because I only make bad decisions in terms of how to do this according to this game.
Right.
Oh my gosh. I lose, and I push my luck, right? I just tend to lose
Right.
instead of giving up. I like want the greater victory kind of thing. So if you are a solo gamer and you like the idea of these really difficult decisions in what is ultimately a mechanically pretty simple game,
Yeah.
um, I think you should check out Resist. I think it's a very, very good game. I know that a couple of the game designers, I don't know them all very, very well, are um, pretty into like Hex Encounter and very hardcore war games. So I think they're pulling some of the psychology of those games into their design here as well. So Resist is a solo game worth a look for sure. And between this and the roll and write game that I'll talk about in the future, it makes me pay attention to Salt and Pepper games, right? It makes
Right.
me go, oh, this is a publisher making interesting choices and interesting decisions on what games they publish that I find compelling. So, Salt and Pepper games, Resist, Solo, there you go.
No, and the theme is definitely one that's important, and I think a lot of people who maybe are looking for also those types of themes might enjoy it. So I do want to finish off with war. Huh. What is it good for? Absolutely
Absolutely
nothing.
nothing.
So
Yep.
something to think about.
All right. Well, on that kind of heavy note, I didn't even mean to make it that heavy. It's just even as I was thinking about it, I was like, oh gosh, yeah, all this stuff that goes through my head as I
Yeah.
played Resist is coming back up. But we have something. No, you're the expert today because, Mandy, there's just the spiel list was too big. And we didn't want to cut ourselves off to just 3.4 games. So,
Exactly.
Game Pie, full of games that we are fascinated to look at the spiel at Essen. All right, Mandy. I know both of us are just crushed that we cannot go to the spiel this year because I'm pretty sure it's both of our favorite
Oh,
convention.
100%, like hands down.
Yeah, it's just the games that are offered, the environment, just the pretzels and the waffles in the exhibit hall. It's just the perfect convention, right?
Right, exactly. I'm about it.
Uh,
So, yeah.
but thanks to Board Game Geek assembling the wonderful preview list, we've gone through them and we just have our game pie full of games that are catching our eye. Now, Mandy, I don't know what parameters or rules you put around your list, but I know for me, I focused on games that I have not played except for one kinda and that were kind of new to me that I wanted to know more about but I don't know, like, whether you had the same
Well,
approach or
I
what
mean,
your
I'm
approach
very
was.
open about having ADHD, so I kind of just went, "Oh, this looks good," and came up with a list about 35 games. And then for our list today, I just randomly chose 10 that I talk about, but they're all ones that I would definitely be interested in playing. That's my
Well, it's
thought
interesting
process.
because you picked a bunch that, like, I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I want that one too." So, yeah, okay.
So yeah, that's
Well,
what we
then
got.
you kick us off, Mandy. We're gonna do what, 10? I think we said we're gonna
Yeah,
do
about 10.
10
And
games
it's just
each.
a quick thing. We're not going in too deep because, like I said, I just quickly looked at this. So
Yeah, I don't know much. Yeah, exactly.
yeah, but
Go for it.
kicking it off is a good way to start because the first game on my list is Fantasy Ranch. Now, I know what you're thinking. It's not like that. It's a ranch with horses, right? But it's, where all your dreams come true about owning this beautiful ranch. So, as soon as I saw worker placement, dice rolling, I'm like, "Hey, this sounds like the game for me." And I think it's not too long. I think it's only about 10 to 75 minutes. So I guess that you could have a very short game. But Fantasy Ranch, I know
Did
that's
you
not
say
like,
10 to 75?
that's what it says online.
That's banana. All right.
So
All
that
right.
concerns me that I could manage my ranch poorly, but I digress. This is something that I would be interested in playing because it's like managing your ranch, managing your horses, and obviously trying to make it the best that it can be. So I know that might not be a great selling point, but I thought it was, and it looks great. Fantasy Ranch.
All right. I honestly, that one escaped my notice. So I'll check it out. First up for me, Stellarian. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited for Stellarian. I can't even tell you. This is the next game in the Oniverse series of games by Shadi Torby that was previously published by Z-Man Games. And then, Z-Man had some changes internally and I wasn't sure what was going to
Okay.
happen. Boom, Impatience has picked up apparently the entire line,
Oh
is going
wow.
to continue to publish them. It has the same really cool art by Elise Plessis, and I'm just absolutely this one's uh, got a universe, a spaceship setting, a spaceship theme, Mandy. I'm
Ew.
so excited for Stellarian. Of course, this is the solo game series that includes uh well now I can't Stellian is
Mhm.
one of them and Arion is one of them that's my
Yep.
favorite. Nautilion is one of my favorites. So Stellarian, I gotta have it. I gotta get it. I gotta figure out how I can order it as soon as it's possibly available. And it's at the Spiel. You lucky people.
Now, this is not on my list, but glad that it sounds good for you.
Thank you.
The next one on my list is Arabella. Now, it's deceiving because on the box, there's like a little kitten playing with trains. So you're like, this is gonna be light. Well, it's in the 45 to 90-minute mark, but it's a 18xx roll and write. And it's one. The goal is to try to, I think, kind of get people into 18xx without being overwhelming. So as soon as
Mhm.
I saw that, I'm about it. So for me, Arabella looks like one I want to try. The time frame seems nice, so I can possibly pull in some of my friends who are not like heavy gamers but are interested in this type of game. So Arabella looks very fun to me.
Excellent. Excellent. I'm pretty excited about this one too. All right. Well, next slice up for me, Colorado. This is a roll and write, I think, game. They call it a call and write. I'm really not sure anything about that. Like, there's very, very few details. It's published by Silex Games, but I am intrigued because they mention a common bounty board.
Mhm.
And so that has me intrigued. I've heard that there may be some potential issues around some of the illustrations that they've chosen because it takes place in like the Wild West and in
Right.
terms of representing indigenous people. So I'm a little worried about that,
Mm.
but it sounds like it might have some unique card play along with that roll and write or flip and write mechanism, which I'm always into. So Colorado is my number two game. We're not ranking them though, right, Mandy? These
No,
are just
I
like
just say
random.
like my second. It doesn't mean it's number 2, but yes.
Okay.
All right. Well, the next one on my list is Revive. And
Yes.
I usually go to Essen and there's always a game from Aporta, one or two games from Aporta that I have to pick up. So this one was by Aporta Games. And just the box is very pretty with some of the art. So that, of course, drew my eye. But it's a game where you have asymmetric player powers, which is nice. So you're going to have different kinds of setups. And I like that because it's always going to change the gameplay. And the main goal of the game is to reach and populate large ancient sites. And I know in the game you have cards you can play, you can explore, populate, building factories, that sort of thing. So a lot of things that we're familiar with in a lot of games. Uh, I've always been a big fan of a Porta game, so I'm very excited to see what this one brings to the table. So that is Revive.
Excellent choice. My next slice, Flowar.
Hmm.
Flower?
I think that's on my list too.
Flowar. This is being published by Primogenio. And this is the one that kind of broke my rules because I did play a prototype version of this
Oh,
digitally on
oh,
Tabletop Simulator. But Mandy, it's by Llama Dice. Llama
oh.
Dice, of course, is the design team behind Red Cathedral, which has
Mhm.
been a massive hit, right? And they also did the Channel Tunnel worker placement game, and I think they're just wonderful. I think they do wonderful, wonderful games. So, Flowar is a worker placement game all about like collecting flowers, like the
Okay.
flower business
Yeah.
in a fantasy world. So it's not in a real world, but it's all about placing workers, gathering up sets, making choices, getting, fulfilling contracts. In the early version I played, I really liked it. Every one of Llama Dice's games has a little bit of an edge to it,
Mhm.
right? Just a little bit of a little bit of a stiletto in the kidneys, and I Floar has that too. I'm really excited to check out what they did with the final game design and with the final production. So that had to be on my list. Floar,
I think that's on my list
flower.
too, on my 32 games there.
It's
So
because
yeah, looks good.
you got good taste.
I know, you too. All right, next on my list is El Burro. And this is El Burro a la Granja game. So that's apparently the full title. I'm hoping I said that correctly. And this is actually by Spielworks. And I definitely would say I have quite a few games from Spielworks, and they're sometimes tough to get. So if I can grab one that's really good, I try and do my best to do that. So in El Burro, you are a new. It's a standalone. So it's not part of La Granja. Like it's just kind of like in the same world, and you're developing your farm, but you have to move your goods from your farm to the port of a specific place called La Palma. And in this game, you are farmers at Mallorca. So that's like a different take on it. It's a game that has cards and dice, multi-use cards and dice. So of course, those two things. I'm like, okay, this sounds like it's
Yeah,
right up my alley. So
yeah.
I think you do things like deliveries, and then you get points for cards that you're completing and that sort of thing. So El Burro is one that just appealed to me from, La Granja kind of style game. And I'm a big fan of Spielworks games overall. So very excited for that one.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, sounds so fun. All right. Well, I've kind of got two games for my next one. It's
Oh,
the new
wow.
I know, but like they're the new ones from Emperor S4, and I've always been a huge fan of Emperor
Hmm.
S4 as a publisher.
Yeah.
And one, so it's World Exchangers and World Splitters,
Okay.
and I'm really excited by the idea. Traditionally, Emperor S4 has done mostly like ancient China set games.
Right.
I mean, you had like Walking in Burano, which was more modern and things like that. But I maybe I'm not remembering, but I think this is their first foray into like a futuristic science
Oh,
fiction kind of setting.
nice.
And so I'm just excited by that at all. But also, I think I think they're roll and write games. I can't quite tell. Like this is us, like just like right. This is what I'm interested in
Yeah,
because there's
exactly.
definitely writing sheets, and I can't tell the differences. Like I'm not quite sure the differences between the two games. That's why I put them here. But yeah, World Exchangers and World Splitters, new releases from Empress 4. Certainly, it feels like a different take on a setting for them. And hello, if Empress 4 is doing a roll and write game, I gotta have it. I gotta get it. Mandy, oh my gosh, how could we gotta go to Essen because this is just
I know.
terrible.
This is
There's too
out of
many games. I
control.
want them. Ugh. So that's World Exchange.
All right. Well, I'll allow that because it sounds
World
interesting.
Exchangers.
The next one on my list, I okay, I'm gonna be very straight up with you. I'm familiar with the video game, so I was like, oh, well, the board game could be interesting. So that's Kingdom Come Deliverance, and this is a big one. This is like 180 to 240 minutes, and it's being published by Board Cubator. And for those who are
Okay.
not familiar with the video game, it's one that takes place in. Oh, I know I'm gonna get roasted for this. I don't remember. Hold on. Let me check my notes. I know it takes place in a time where religion was a very big deal, like a conflict between religious beliefs. Do you know what I mean? In politics, monastery, and things like that. So it takes time. It takes place in that kind of time. Journey through the Holy Roman Empire. There you go. I found it. Whew. And it is a narrative type game. Definitely ones with miniatures that you're trying and campaign type modes that you can use that you can go through in the game. I believe this was on GameFound, so I thought initially it was an Essen release, but it was on GameFound. But probably you're gonna have a chance to see it there. So Kingdom Come Deliverance, literally on my list, I think because it's in line with the video game. I want to see if it's any good. So
All right. I know nothing about any of that, so I'm happy for you. And my next game is like the complete opposite of that game in almost every way. Waldmeister.
okay.
Waldmeister is a two-player abstract game from Clemens Gerhardt, which is the publisher. And Mandy, you know this, and we've talked about it on the podcast,
Yeah.
in the Dice Tower podcast before. Clemens Gerhardt produces these beautiful wooden abstract games, and I typically love them. And here we have Waldmeisters, a new one at the Spiel, two-player in which you have different pegs in different shades of green, and one player is competing to collect them by color, and another one is collecting them by size, I
Mhm.
believe. And so you're just putting these pegs into a board, trying to create little clusters and things like that. That straightforward, but always, 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 these games have a depth. That abstract nature just makes it the perfect information. All that just makes it a very tense game experience from what I'm used to experiencing with Clemens Gerhardt. So totally excited for this new one, Waldmeister. And I mean, two-player abstract wooden,
Right. Yeah.
it's the opposite of Kingdom Come Deliverance.
But I think it's on my list as well. Not on this list, but the main
But
list.
that's not a value
No,
statement
no,
either,
not at
right?
all.
It's just mechanically, aesthetically, everything. They're just very different.
Exactly. Absolutely. So the next one takes us even further away from either of those things. It's Insecta, the Ladies of Entomology. So, for those who don't know what entomology is, the study of bugs. I don't enjoy bugs on me, near me, but I am fascinated by bugs. Do you know what I mean? Like, I
Sure.
appreciate what they do, but from a distance. In this particular game, I think it's paying a tribute to entomology and the women who were part of that world as well, who have contributed. And I think in this one, specifically, it's a card type game. And I think you're trying to, from what I gather, okay, let's be clear. I picked it based solely on the name and the art. I think you get to facilitate objectives and you're using cards and things. I'm assuming with because I don't have a ton of pictures of it, I'm assuming with the insects in order to do that sort of thing. And I'm hoping that they do highlight some of the women that were part of that world or contributed. So, Insecta, the Ladies of Entomology, don't love bugs, but I'm fascinated. So, I'm curious to see more.
That sounds pretty cool. I love the
Yeah.
theme of it. All right. Next slice of Essen pie for me is Moon Leap. And I actually just had to pick one because I'm just really excited about this in general. So there is a publisher, and I've talked about some of their games in the past called Open and Play, and they're a Korean based publisher. And they've since rebranded, I believe, to a company called Plate. Playte or Playte. I don't know the actual how they pronounce it. And a lot of their games are taking kind of classics and modernizing them thematically and aesthetically and putting them back out there. And they've done that with games like Big Shot and Tasso and things like that. And here now they've just got a whole lineup coming to the spiel.
Nice.
And I'm actually pretty upset. I don't have an easy way to buy these because I'm really excited about them. But Moonleap is the one I picked. This is actually a re-implementation of New Mary in which
Oh,
they've put some theme on it. But whenever you go to open and play or platey, they're beautiful. They've got great production value, and they're kind of bringing games that I think might be a little bit older that maybe newer players don't have exposure to, and I
right.
love that they're bringing classics back that really deserve your attention, that really stand the test of time. And so that's another thing I'm super excited about what Platey is doing.
Mhm.
So Moon Leap, if you're there and you want a modern version of New Mary, check it out.
Try it.
It looks really good.
I think that is also on my list. Well, now we've gone from Moonleap to Lacrimosa. So about music, and I think it's based off of Mozart being dead, but in the game that I know, I'm sorry, I seem to have a thing with death this episode. I'm so sorry, but
Well,
in
I
this
mean,
game,
I think most people know that Mozart has passed away at
sure,
this
sure, I
point.
know, but I it's just said it so like direct. Uh, but players in this game, I think they take the roles of patrons of Mozart, contributing their funding to the works one last time. And in the game, I believe you're playing cards from a hand, and like it'll progress the game, and they can be played as actions or resource generators. I love games that have like multi-use cards, and I feel like that's the situation here. So Lacrimosa, I saw at Gen Con, so I don't think it's launching at Essen, but I think it's one that'll have a like, kind of a bigger release there. So very excited to try Lacrimosa.
Good. Yeah, definitely on my list as well. All right, moving down the line, Just Wild. One of my favorite publishers, especially when they do their smaller box games, is Helvetique.
Yeah.
They've done like they did Dice Trip, which is a wonderful roll and write game, and they've just got a nice variety in this small box game series that they have. Now, I assume Just Wild, just by the shape of the box image, is in that series, but I don't actually know. This is a game in which it looks like cards have different wildlife on them, and then there's tokens with wildlife that are being placed over it, and you are trying to manage habitats for four different endangered species,
Right.
but you're trying to block your opponents to ensure your species thrives. So it sounds like it could be a little cutthroat in that. But I love it when you've got kind of this growing tableau and you're creating regions with card play, and the token play looks like you're claiming spots or things like that. So it just has a lot of interesting things, and I always love Helvetique for their production
Yeah.
value and their aesthetics and what they can put in a little box. So
Mhm.
Just Wild, along with quite frankly a whole bunch of games that look newer for them, will be at the spiel. So make sure you go to Helvetique's booth and check it out,
I did
and
see that one on the
buy a
list.
copy of Just Wild and then show me photos of it and make me cry.
I did see it. They had some other ones there. That reminded me of an old supervisor. Anytime something would happen at work, she'd go, "That's just wild, just wild." That's exactly how she would say it. That's all I could think of when you were talking about that. So I like the title. Next up on my list is Woodcraft. I thought the art was very interesting on that. I love the kind of style of the hair. I know it sounds silly, but when you see the box cover, you'll be like, "Ah, that's cool." And this is coming published by Delicious Games, and they've made some really amazing games in the past. And I believe in this game, you're trying to complete projects with wood, and I think it's the representing the dice in this game, and you're cutting them down, gluing them back together, adjusting them, and this is where dice manipulation is going to come into play for your resources. So Woodcraft, I liked it instantly from looking at the art and then
Yeah.
hearing more about the gameplay. I mean, I'm a sucker for dice. I know a lot of people think it's random, but I do like dice in games. Just saying. So Woodcraft for me is one that I'm looking forward to.
Nothing wrong with Dyson Games, and anything from Delicious Games is
Oh,
intriguing
so
just on
good.
principle, right?
Exactly.
Now, folks, I could have probably done a whole list of only roll and write. So I pulled back from that. But you knew I had to have some, right? And honestly, the one I'm most excited about is Nirvana. This is coming from Korea Board Games, and it is there's so much space in the okay, I won't go on my dissertation about the wonderful world of roll and writes, but this is something really exciting to me because basically the first part of the game, you're playing a roll and write game to create card values. And then the second part of the game, you're playing a shedding card game based on the values that you've determined from the roll and write part. Hello. Sounds incredibly cool. Yeah. Oh, so if you're there, please go check out Nirvana. I love this idea. Like it's just so intriguing, right? The variable value that
Yes.
you create through the dice and the roll and write element impacting the other kind of like that just sounds so unique and really intriguing. So Nirvana from Korea Board Games definitely tops.
Now, I don't think that was on my list, but I'll have to go and revisit. But
It is now.
it is
It is
exactly. I'm
now.
gonna take a look because it definitely sounds interesting. But I also feel like that warrants a line or two from a Nirvana song. Do you know any?
Mandy, nobody wants me to hear.
Okay. All right. I sang it in my
Nobody wants me to
head,
sing.
but
Yeah.
I'll let it slide. Okay.
I can come up with Teen Spirit. You got to remember I'm from Seattle, right?
Hey, Teen
But
Spirit's a great song,
I'm a
but
terrible,
it's
terrible
okay.
singer.
People can sing it as you were discussing, even though I know it's not the same. All right. So next up I have is a Dorf Romantic das Brettspiel. And
And
yeah,
that
this
is
is
also we didn't we made a little bit of effort not to have overlap,
right.
but this one we had to overlap on.
And I feel
Had
like
to.
you should talk about this one because Dwarf Romantic, for those who don't know, Suzanne is actually the one that introduced a lot of us to Dwarf Romantic. It's on Steam. That's how I started playing it. And I'm like, there's a board game? What? So I don't know. Suzanne, I think you should give a little synopsis of this one.
Well, the reality is I have no idea what they're doing with the board game. I am just so
Sure.
excited that they're making a board game. It's brilliant. So Dorf Romantic, which is like romantic village in German, I
Okay.
think,
I
something
didn't know
like
that.
that. Right? It's a tile laying game in the digital space. It's on Steam. It's also releasing for the Switch.
Yes.
I'm not paid to advertise this, folks. I just really love this game. You get this random stack of tiles that have different terrain on them, and you're just putting them together, trying to create different clusters of terrain type, whether it's forests or rocks or villages. And then different random scoring things will pop up as you're playing in the video game. I don't know how they're managing that in the physical space,
Right.
but Dwarf Romantic is one of those, it's so beautiful.
Hmm.
And it looks like the kind of game that you're going to play and you're just going to be chill and you're going to listen to the beautiful background music and look at the cute little animations. And then you start
And
playing.
then no.
And then you start getting stressed and you start like your brain starts hurting. Right, Mandy? You know what I'm
Oh
talking
no, no,
about.
100%. Like I'm so bad at it. Like there have been a few people online who have been amazing, and I look at my score and I'm all happy with my 10,000, and then I see people with like quadruple that or more.
Yeah. And I mean, one of the interesting things in Dwarf Romantic is that the tiles are currency,
Yeah.
right? So as you score, when you trigger a scoring, you get more tiles. So it perpetuates your
Exactly.
game. And to your point, there is a game designer some of you may have heard of
Hmm.
named Isaac Childress. He designed a really like kind of popular game
Yeah.
called Gloomhaven. You might not have heard of it, but you might want to check that out. So Isaac Childress got into Dwarf Romantic and has posted some of his scores online. It's ridiculous. Like he was like literally the top of the
Oh,
global
this is
leaderboard.
wild. Just
Yeah, I
wild.
like his islands are like, you have to scroll for 5 days to see them all, and then mine's like this big,
Yeah.
right? But,
It's
yeah,
so good
Dwarf
though.
Romantic, the board game,
Very
I'm
excited.
pretty thrilled.
Okay, well, I guess I'll just jump right into my last one. The last game I'm going to talk about is called Coral, and this is published by Two Tomatoes Games, and it's a bit of a cheat. The designers were kind enough, or the publishers as well, were kind enough to show us the game at Gen Con. It wasn't completed yet, but they wanted to give us a quick peek at it, and it's literally about coral, trying to piece parts of the coral reef together. We all have different colors, and they're wooden blocks, and they're represented with our little, the pictures and colors of each player. And at the end, you're trying to make sure that more of your symbols are visible when we kind of take that top down look to see end of game how many points you're going to get. So it sounds like super straightforward, but it gets a little tricky because you can move pieces to cover other people things, and you have another piece that moves on the area which could also cover areas. So simple, but it's one of those ones that I think that you're gonna have a lot of fun with, and it plays really quickly. Like we played it a couple of times, and I was just like, "Oh yeah, I want to try it again or try a different strategy." So Coral for me was really great, and I love the colors and the way it looks.
Yeah, aesthetically and production quality wise, it seemed like at least the version I saw looked
Yes.
phenomenal. Alrighty, last one, last slice of our the Spiel Essen game pie. 1998 ISS.
Mm,
ISS stands for the International Space Station. This is one of the 19XX game series from Looping Games. This they've the whole series is phenomenal. Um, Even the one I like least, I like a lot.
right.
Like it's just one of those things. It's the whole series is phenomenal. It's a very small box, and they just pack a ton of intriguing strategic gameplay into these boxes. 1998 ISS looks like it's a worker placement game all about getting your astronauts to the space station and performing actions on there. The one photo that they have up makes it look like a very Mandy, like any other board game, but I just
Yeah.
knowing the
It will
publisher and
be.
knowing this series, I know it's going to be good, and I'm so excited for like 1987 Channel Tunnel,
Yeah.
which is from Llama Dice that we talked
Mhm.
about, 1923 Cotton Club. All of them are excellent. So, a new 19XX, it's on my list, on my must-have,
Yeah,
must check out list.
those look good. And I want to end by saying I'm sure I 100% did not sell you any of these games based on gameplay, but I encourage you to go look. You'll get a better vibe from them. On my list anyway. I can't speak for Suzanne. So some good stuff.
No, and I mean, ultimately, these are just personal lists, right? These are games that we find intriguing.
Yeah, sometimes I'm just one of those like, and I don't know if anybody else is like that. I can glance at a game, take a quick little skim of what it's about, and be like, okay, that interests me. There are some people who need to read the rule book, and that's totally
Yeah.
fine, and parse through things to get it. But for me, it's more of just like a feeling, a vibe. I like the way it looks. It's doing some things here that I like. Put it on the list. But that's how I roll. So that might not work for everybody, but just gives you an idea of what I'm looking at. So you might want to check it out too.
Absolutely. And, I think if you were to go to boardgamegeek.com and check out their
Yeah.
Spiel preview list, it's got over 1,000 games on it now.
Yeah. I went through that whole list. Yeah, it's over 1,000. It's
That's
wild.
a lot of games.
Mhm.
And Mandy, a lot of them like are ones that we may have heard of or may even be available already, but a lot of them are new.
Yes,
A lot of them are new. So
absolutely. So,
a
yeah,
lot to dig through there.
look at that.
Well, I think that's episode 2, Mandy.
I
Crack the
know.
knuckles.
And
Good job. We did it.
I didn't even get to say my fun fact, but maybe I'll save that for next episode.
You had a fun fact. You did. I was not informed. You had a fun fact.
It's not even a gaming fact, but you said the grizzled and then it popped into my head and it's just bears came to mind. And I know this is just so random. But I learned this the other day cuz I learned one about snakes. I didn't know there was
Well,
one about bears. Let me tell you. I didn't know this was the
well,
thing. So it
this
tells
is a
you
journey.
it is a journey, but people who are listening, they're like, they get it. They know me. This is a thing. You know me. And anyway, this stuck with me. Very useful. I don't know how useful it is for us, but it's about bears. So if it's a black bear, if it's black, fight back. If it's brown, lay down. If it's white, good night. And that all came to me because there's a place in Canada up north where people leave their doors open because if there's a polar bear floating around, you can jump in a car because getting away from a polar bear would be extremely difficult. Anyway, that's my like fun, interesting thing. Now you'll never forget it.
Uh, uh,
So random.
uh, okay.
Yeah,
Thank you, Mandy.
no problem.
I'm
Just in case, you know?
terrified and educated. The more you know. All right, folks. We will, there's nothing else to say at this
No.
point. We will just say thank you for joining us for episode 2. Great to have you here. As always, we are, taking feedback, taking
Mhm.
questions. Mandy has been doing the lion's share of work in the inbox. Thank you, Mandy. We are working on the Apple Podcast approval. Thank you for your patience there, and thank you for your support kind of during that weird time. We know so many of you use that program, but we are on Spotify and a variety of other podcast programs as
Yeah.
well. There's a word for it, whatever. You can email us at saltandsassgames@gmail.com. You can follow us on social media. Mandy, you've got that set up.
Mhm. Yeah, so on Twitter it's Salt N Sass Games, not Ant N Sass Games, but on Twitch it's Salt and Sass Games as well as on YouTube. And you can reach me at 613 Mandy on Instagram and Twitter.
And you can find me at 425 Suzanne on Instagram and Twitter as well. I should probably use my Instagram account more.
Yes, you should.
But yeah, say hi to us on social media, drop us an email, give us feedback on the podcast, leave a comment down below if you're in YouTube, rate us on your podcasting programs if you can. That helps us all, kind of get reestablished as we're
Yeah.
starting from scratch after, years of podcasting. And thank you. Thank you. As always, it is a pleasure and privilege to be part of your extended gaming family. And I can't wait to see you and talk to you next episode.
Yeah. Bye, everybody. Promotional consideration has been provided by game publishers in the form of review copies of games. If you'd like to support the podcast, please check us out on coffee.com Salt and Sass Games. Thank you for your support. Salt and Sass is produced with love by Suzanne and Mandi, and we'll be back next episode with more salt, more sass, and more games.